Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey, have you grabbed your free Self-Love and Sweat monthly calendar yet? This calendar is so amazing. It comes right in your inbox every single month to help you have a little nugget of wisdom, a sweaty workout, a mindset activity, just a little something to help keep you focused and motivated and keep that momentum towards your goals. So every day when you get this calendar, you'll see a link that you can click that will lead to a podcast episode or a workout or something that will be very powerful and quick to read. And then you'll also see on the top left corner of every single day, there's a little checkbox in the calendar. And what that is that's for your one thing. You can choose one thing every month, or it can be the same, something that you want to implement, and make this something that you can easily implement, like daily meditation or getting a certain amount of steps or water, for example, and staying hydrated, and even taking your supplements. This can be something if you want to get more regular doing a particular habit and routine, you can choose what that checkbox means. So if you want your Self-Love and Sweat free monthly calendar delivered right to your inbox every month on the first of the month, go to lifelikeLondon.com/calendar, fill out the form really quickly, and you will have your calendar in your inbox within a few short minutes. That's lifelikeLondon, lifelikeLondon.com/calendar. Go get yours for free and enjoy this episode. Hey friends, happy today. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, both radio and podcast. Super excited that now the podcast is available on Dash Radio on the Expansion channel. And I think I'm even more excited that Megan is here with us too, Megan Gallagher. What's up, sister? How are you?
Hey, London, how are you?
I'm doing so good. I'm happy to have you. I don't want to intro you. Tell everyone a little bit about who you are and your mission in the world. She's amazing. I love you.
Yes. So my name is Megan Gallagher, and I'm a two-time TEDx speaker, four-time Amazon bestseller, mental health advocate for young adults, TV host, blogger, TikToker, you name it, I do it. And I'm so passionate about mental health. Really, everything that I do stems back to mental health and really giving back. And I call it giving a voice to the voiceless, because I've had my own struggles when I was in high school. I was having crippling panic attacks, no self-awareness. You know, when you're a teenager, you're already going through so many changes, hormonal, physical, mental. And I just felt so alone. You know, I felt really just like a shell of a person. And I will never forget having a mini rock bottom moment. Like we all in our lives will have kind of like that something has to change, right? And at 16, I remember sitting in the girls' bathroom stall of my high school, hearing the hum of the generator in the bathroom, staring at the tiles on the ground. And I was just like, I'm like, something really just, I was like, I want to feel better. And I'm like, you know what? I'm at 16. I don't even see a future for myself, because I'm just like focused on making it 5 more minutes. And I was in survival mode, hanging on by a thread in all areas of my life. And I'm like, so I just want to feel better. So I really reached out to my community and asked for help from my parents, and they put me in therapy immediately. But you know, that's why I do what I do. Is I had my own journey, and I have been on this ride for 10 years since I was 18. And I've loved it. I've loved every second of it. And so it's been a decade of really, you know, giving back.
Yeah, I love that. And Megan and I, we haven't met in person, but we were just talking off air before we started about how I'm going to be in Texas, where she lives, in June of next year.
Woo!
And I'm so excited. But we both said, we're like, it kind of feels like we've already been friends. So it'll just be like the
Yes.
icing on the cake. Because you were on my podcast before. And we talked all about like mental health in the school systems, mental health being, or tools to support our mental health being
Mm-hmm.
available to us like so much sooner. And
Yes.
I know, you know, and those listening, you go to school and there's like math and science and social studies and like PE and, you know,
Mhm.
all these like basic classes that we're used to being incorporated in like regular school, air quotes, if you will. And I
Yes.
remember us like diving into like what a typical day in an ideal dream school would be for us, like incorporating
Yeah.
things like breath work and meditation and
Yep.
all these tools that like I didn't find, or even like you were 16 when you had that moment. I think I was probably like 23, 24, where I had this
Yeah.
moment where I'm like, wait, like I want to feel good. I don't know what's going on. I don't have the tools and resources.
Yep.
You know, Western medicine is not providing these tools and resources. School
Yes.
education system is not. And so I think you and I really bonded over that because we both love breath work and meditation and all of these tools for mental
Yep.
health. So I really loved that conversation.
It's so powerful, London. And I agree. I think, you know, there's so many of us that wish in our middle school, high school, college that there were classes really preparing us for like real life. You know, I understand learning about math and history and science and all that stuff is so important, but I always wished when I was in my high school, I can't even count to like tell you how many times I was sitting, you know, in my class staring out at the clouds. You know, I was always so creative and free spirited, and I always felt like a tug and a calling just towards being an entrepreneur, even at like a young age when it wasn't really cool or there wasn't a class about it. I remember staring out in the clouds, and you know, just really thinking like I was like, I just always feel like I'm just different. You know, something in me just doesn't, I don't resonate with math. And although those classes are great, like I was saying, I always wish that there was a class about mental health or just how to listen to your intuition or what is happiness. And I just think that so many young adults, because there are no classes, so many young adults, you know, feel like so just embarrassed and ashamed and awkward when they're hit 25, 30, when you're really evolving into an adult. And they're like, wait, I'm not happy in this 9 to 5 or in this relationship. Wait, I feel so out of alignment. Like I'm depressed. It's because you're probably not listening to your intuition. You're probably not following your dreams, and you're settling and just doing things to be realistic and practical. And I just wish that when I was younger, they prepared us for like how to actually find a meaningful, purposeful life,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I guess I'll pre-frame this part by saying, like, I'm not a parent. I'm 99% sure you're not a parent also, Megan, right? Yeah. But I was talking about this the other day and really thinking about this. Growing up, we often ask kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, doctor, lawyer, teacher,
Yes. Yeah.
marine biologist, or like whatever. But I
Yeah.
always feel like that does such a disservice because number one, it presupposes that we have to choose one thing. And I know I can
So
speak for
true.
myself that like I thrive running multiple businesses. I love that I can be a master life coach, NLP practitioner. I love I can have my podcast. I love that I can have my beauty counter business. I love that I can do voiceover work. Like that part, I just feel like fuels my creative energy. And so I think what a better question is like, how do you want to feel when you grow up? Like, what do you want to exude on a day-to-day basis? What does that look like? And I think, like, to your point of, okay, well, I'm in this 9 to 5 and all of a sudden I'm like in the soup. I drank the Kool-Aid and I didn't even like realize I had an option to have multiple avenues or streams of income. I didn't realize I could wear multiple hats and that could be okay. So I often will ask my niece or kids that I work with, like, okay, well, like, how do you want to feel when you grow up? Like, what are experiences you want to have, right? And to your point, like, if we're taught to listen to our intuition and to understand the differentiating factors between feelings of like happiness and joy and frustration and anger and sadness and like tuning into these different voices, I just feel like that would be a much better question. Don't you think?
Yes, because when you teach young adults, because at that age, your brain is developing so much, like your frontal cortex, which controls emotional regulation, and like so much of you're growing into yourself, you're being stretched, you're having your first social, major relationship interactions, you're learning. For some people, it's the time when they have their first, romantic relationships, and you're having prom and all these things, and you're getting ready for college. It's so much change at once. And I always wished, like, why can't we have a class about really emotional intelligence and understanding our emotions? Because if you think about it, if you go through life, your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, always on autopilot, just, Band-Aid over bullet hole, like, oh, I'm fine, I'm just tired. Well, really, but it's like, why though? Every time you question, but why are you tired? You'll get to the root. It's like a method I call funnel thinking, where if you think about a funnel, at the top, it's very wide and broad, and it goes down to a narrow point. Anytime I, in my own life, because a therapist taught me that technique, anytime I, in my own life, feel like just, oh, I'm stressed, but I always am trained because of the therapist, I question it, but why am I stressed? Oh, well, I mean, it's, you get more specific, and then boom, your real root answer at the tip because it's narrow. And I always just wish, there was a class about like understanding our emotions, because you want to go through life being mindful. And that's why I love practices like journaling and breath work, and where you can actually label the emotion. And, how do I feel? Well, I feel, depressed or nostalgic, sad, not good enough, insecure, anxious, uncomfortable. Like, really label it, and don't be afraid to label it. And that's a part 2 of what I wish was taught in my school was, not having guilt or shame or embarrassment with these emotions. Like, just knowing that it's so normal, and everyone, all 8 billion humans on this planet, we all feel the same emotions, just in a different way, and they manifest a little bit differently. But to know that anything related to mental health or just the holidays, it's a lot of emotions to navigate. It's so normal. like knowing it's normal, releases, because mental health can bring so much guilt and shame and embarrassment and isolation with it, but you gotta like let that go, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if we talked about this on our last episode. We might have, but the feelings wheel. Do you use the feelings wheel? Do you know what
I
that is?
love the feelings wheel.
Yeah, same. And for those of you listening, it's like, I think it's like thefeelingswheel.com or feelingswheel.com. You can just find it for free. And it's
Yes.
like this
Yes.
wheel of all these different colors and a lot of different words for different feelings and emotions. And at first, I thought I would be overwhelmed by having a lot of different words for
Yeah.
different feelings, but actually it was super empowering to be like,
Yep.
okay, what's the difference between like sadness and despair and resentment? And another book that I love is Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. And she does a really good job at putting like
Ooh.
solid definitions to some of these emotions. And I think,
Yeah.
like you said, it might be like a closet that we think there's a monster in that we're like afraid to look in. But I
Really.
highly encourage anybody listening, and I'm sure you would too as well, Megan, like look at the feelings wheel, like just read through it, look
Love
through some
that.
of the different words because there are some differences and it's not always just like mad, sad, glad, or like I think
Mhm.
Brene Brown says it or someone said it, like Dr. Seuss words for our emotions, like
Yeah.
mad, sad, glad, bad. It's like there's so many other
Oh my gosh.
juicier options, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. And not just this, yeah, not just like, oh, I'm just tired. It's like, specify it a little bit, but what are you really? Are you feeling depressed, sad, fatigued, lethargic, burnt out? You know, really get, because the more, I've realized this, the more specific you get, you're only helping yourself feel better and actually figure out a solution and feeding, you know, filling your cup. I think sometimes people can be raised, depends on the household that you grow up in. I feel like I got lucky because, you know, I grew up in a household where my parents really encouraged my sister and I, like, feel your feelings. This is a safe household. Express yourself. We will hold the space for you. And I know not everyone grows up in households like that. And I think how you're raised, like from ages, you know, like you're like a sponge. You're absorbing your environment and that like shapes your foundation. Of course, you can do healing work later on in life, but people really are raised and conditioned. Like when you're born, if you imagine like Play-Doh straight out of the can, no one has touched it, fresh. And then ages 2, 3, 4, you're slowly getting molded and shaped, different edges and morphed. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're 25 years old, your community, your household, religion, your parents' marriage, all of that shapes you and how you view the world, your belief about love, what is possible with money, what communication looks like. So if you grow up in a household where there is extreme like addiction and abuse and you're walking on eggshells all the time and it's like survival mode, not only is your nervous system wrecked, but that's like your normal because you grew up with that. So you're going to probably attract relationships that are toxic and very like survival mode, abusive. So it's like whatever we grow up with, we're a sponge for that environment. And you know, it's powerful because we really just are, like I said, we can do so much healing work. But like for me, I feel so grateful because, yeah, my parents were so encouraging. Like, you know, whatever you're feeling is normal. And they did a great job of structure, discipline, but also allowing us to be creative and to explore our passions. And so I think a lot of people may not be super aware of how their, you know, like childhood really affects the way that their mind is like wired.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. It's major. I think I really lucked out on the parents. In fact, I know I really lucked out on the parents card too. Looking back and remember our memories are like only 50% accurate anyways, right? So it's like I
Yeah.
always pre-frame that too because yeah, looking back, I definitely, my dad was a coach growing up, or he, you know, was my whole life. And so it was definitely more like suck it up, find a way, figure it out. I don't think that my emotions and my wide range of emotions were as honored as maybe yours were. It was more just kind of like
Yeah.
get over it, move on, find a way, push through.
Interesting.
And I'm really grateful for that because now through this healing journey, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
hells yeah, I like that quality about me. I like my find a way, get her done, like push through,
Yeah.
mentality. But I've also found a little bit more softness and grace for myself because my
Yeah.
parents were just imperfect beings, humans doing the best with the tools that they've had. And I love the work I've done on communication and this work
Love
because
it.
now I get to have these really powerful and profound conversations with my parents. And
Yeah.
luckily, they're not like defensive of like, oh, like they're very open to
Yeah.
these conversations and open to improvement, which I absolutely love. But, you know, I know you do a lot of speaking and you go to like schools, high schools,
Mhm.
junior highs, all the things. Knowing that you've had the supportive, free spirit, be your creative self type of parents, how do you help students who don't have that?
That's a great question. And honestly, that comes up more times than you would even imagine. Like over my career, the past 10 years, if I think back on all of the, middle school, high schools, colleges, even Fortune 500 companies, but especially the schools that I've spoken at, you would be so shocked as to how many kids grow up in households where they do not feel heard and seen and understood. And for me, I can sometimes tell, sometimes not, but I can sometimes tell the kids who really are growing up in difficult homes because when I speak and when I share my stuff and it inspire them, they're like, what? It's like I'm opening a world that they never knew existed. They were like, wait, what I'm feeling has a name. It's
Mm,
anxiety. I'm not crazy. Like, oh, so maybe this relationship is toxic. Like they can label things. And I feel like for me to be able to give that gift to people of being able to label and identify emotions, mental health stuff, and what's okay, what's not okay, for me to be able to do that for other people is probably the greatest gift that I could ever ask for. It's really, like I said, giving a voice to the voiceless and being that person, that change maker for other people. Because I remember when I was in high school, even though I grew up in a great household, I still struggled so deeply with mental health issues because there was no conversation, no self awareness. And I just was like, oh, I'm just dying every day. It's normal. But I really am doing this for my younger self. And because I told myself, I never want any other student to feel this way. I felt so alone and so just like this weird secret little invisible illness. I felt so ashamed. But now I'm like the most open book and I'm so empowered by it because you realize now I'm spiritual. So I'm like, it happened for a reason. But to answer your question, London, like all the schools that I've spoken at, there are so many kids that, also will listen to me talk. They don't ask any questions, but then after they'll find me on Instagram and they will say things, like, oh my gosh, you know, Megan, like I loved what you said and I'm sorry I didn't ask a question, and then they'll pour their heart out to me and they're like, my household is this, or I'm dating this guy right now and he makes me feel XYZ, like what should I do? And to me it's special because they're still going to find me online and DM me. And I think it's powerful too because I think with men and women, even though it's 2023, times are different, I think men and women can sometimes be raised differently when it comes to mental health and talking about emotions and being in touch with their feelings.
mm-hmm.
And the amount of guys that DM me on Instagram, they don't really ask questions in the talks, but they'll always find me online after. And they say things like, hey, Megan, what you said was so powerful. And I've been going through, this pressure to be like the perfect football player and excel and succeed and be the man and like have that hot girlfriend. But then guess what? They're still human beings. So they also feel like not good enough at times and insecure and worried about failing. And what if I don't impress my parents, and just all the pressure that can really make you have just like a breakdown. And so it's powerful when they find me online, but a lot of people, you'd be so shocked. It's a sad reality, but a lot of people grow up in households that are not supportive and not that safe space for you to like be a kid or a teenager. A lot of people have to grow up very quickly or take care of their parents or, so I just feel grateful I can use my stuff, to be that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I hear you say is like, we all come from different backgrounds, different family lives, whatever, but you're opening that door for people to
Yeah.
see. And then they still have to walk their own path. They still have
Yeah.
to, turn their mess into their message or find that message
Yes.
in
Yeah.
some of that misery. And, I truly believe, that our parents and our parents' parents like do the best with the tools that they have. And so
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of, what I coach on, especially in communication and things like that, is to like, okay, I know it's frustrating. And I found myself super angry for a while. I was like angry that my parents didn't know better. But then it's like when you do let's say the social studies within your own family. So you start to
Yeah.
look back at your family line, your
It's
own
a
history
generational
book.
cycle.
Yeah, you get to see like, okay, well, my parents were raised like this, and this is where my
Yeah.
grandparents came from. So like,
Yeah.
how in the world can I expect them to have those tools? Like was my ownership moment where it's like, they didn't have that. And now this is your turn, Lunden. So if you choose to stay angry and you choose to, be pissed off and point the blame at somebody else's fault,
Yeah.
that's your choice. And then I have my niece, she's 5, and I'm like, oh no, like this is my job. It's my job to do the communication. It's my job to teach about feelings and ways to regulate your nervous system, and that it's okay to feel a certain type of way. But you can't see it here in the video. And of course, those people that are listening can't see it either. But I have a picture of my great grandmother on my shelf up here because it reminds me of her, who came from Italy to America, didn't know anyone, arranged marriage, no choice, never saw her family again. There was not like cell phones and FaceTimes and ways to stay connected. Like when when she found out that her mother died, she found out because they took a picture of her dead mother in the casket and then they mailed it to her. And when we were cleaning out her stuff after she passed away, my cousin found that picture, right, of like her dead mom. And we were like, what is this? And we were like, oh, well, that was a nice delivery message. So it's like, of course, she didn't have the tools that we have now. And there's so much gratitude for the hardships that she went through, because now I get to have, like we talked about in the beginning, I can do whatever I want. I can have whatever jobs I want. I get to live my dream of being able to travel the world and live wherever I want. And now I'm in the mountains and I love it. And I get to go to Cabo after Christmas. Like that's not because I just did it all on my own. That's like a lot of sacrifices along the line that I think allowed me to appreciate that a little bit more. And then of course, feelings of anxiety and stress and all of that. Oh my gosh, I bet you and not to discount my feelings, because I want to, all feelings are valid, but it's like my anxiety and stress is like, when I look at it, it's like, grains of sand compared to the mounds of stress and anxiety she must have felt, moving to a different country and not having her all these different things. And so I just share that because that's been so healing for me. And I think we have to look back. We have to like do our own social studies work, and like go back in our own history class of our own family line. And like you said, that funnel where it's like you get to that point where you're like, oh, I can't do anything but say thank you. Like I am no longer angry. Like I am so grateful for all of that foundational groundwork that led me to be where I am at now, Like it gives me goosebumps even talking about it right now.
Yeah, and it's so powerful what you just said, Lunden, because it's like, honestly, I agree too. Like let's be real. No matter how amazing your childhood was, we all have stuff. We all have baggage. Nothing is perfect. And it's a powerful thing because in the healing journey, I call it undoing the doing. Something was once done, but you're peeling away those layers. And for most adults, not all, but the ones that are self-aware and are open and on that healing journey, their walkabout, I call it, like in Australia, they're on their walkabout, when you reach, I think like 25 and just beyond in those years, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, as you literally just start looking back and questioning things, which is good. That's a part of the journey. You question, did I really love this tradition and this belief about love and the way that my parents were strict and, did this and that and that. And, you have to realize that it is, it's so powerful when you can, go through kind of the 7 stages of grief where maybe you feel angry, but you feel into it. And then you maybe, pass through different emotions of gratitude and acceptance and etc. And for me, I know for sure, like and you look back at maybe your parents, the way that they were raised, maybe they're just doing the best that they could with what they knew, I mean, if we think about it, our parents, mine grew up in the late 70s, early 80s. Times were very different. And then if you look back a different generation, my grandparents grew up in the 40s and 50s, like they grew up, it was very much survival, depression. After the depression, just get a job, just go to college, and you're the Betty Crocker at home if you're a girl. Like, times were so different. My grandma got married at 22 and had her first child at 23, and it's fascinating to me. And she's been through so much. Like, she's, been a widow like she's been through a lot, and she's still so strong. And I just think that generation, went through so much, but no one talked about things. It was just very much like, oh, mental health under the rug. Oh, you're, gay or lesbian, or, oh, under the rug. And it makes me sad to think back. I feel so grateful to grow up in this generation because, it makes me sad to look back and to think about how much shame and isolation people went through in that day and age where, God forbid, they didn't want to go to college or they resonated with a different sexuality. I mean, they were just like shunned, or they had to push it down. And I feel like when you bottle up your emotions, or when you suppress who you really are, it just manifests in such unhealthy ways. Or you want to drink away the pain, or you think something is wrong with you, but it's so not true. And so I think, just like the whole Parenting Forgiveness Act, it's a really beautiful journey when, you can get to a point and look back, like for you, Lunden, and be like, you know what? I'm so grateful because all of that conditionings and the teachings and the way that I grew up, it did somehow shape me into this successful person that I am today. It did give me the drive. And, like for me, sometimes, I look back and I'm like, my anxiety though, it did motivate the crap out of me. Cause I'm like, I never want to feel this way again. So it serves a purpose. And I really think in those moments, I think of all of my favorite leaders and speakers and gurus that I look up to, like, Ed Milet or Tony Robbins. I mean, they grew up in very difficult households. Like Tony Robbins had an abusive alcoholic mother, grew up extremely poor, but if he didn't have that upbringing, he would not be the person that he is today. That gave him so much drive, and it probably taught him a lot about reading people and just so many little skills that shaped him into the powerful speaker that he is today. And I would never say that childhood is so not difficult and traumatizing, but it all serves a bigger purpose. And that's why I always say, it's happening for you, not to you. But I think it's just, life is one giant, unlayering, removing, healing, going inward. And we're all on this journey. All humans are. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love everything that you just said. At the time of recording this right now, what's today? December 13th. So we're at the end of 2023 at the time of recording this. And speaking of like looking back on things that we learned from, or things that maybe we thought were like disastrous, but now we're like, wait, I would not have changed that because that was major. I needed that in my life. Like I needed that pain in order to find my path to where I'm at now. And I think the more that you do that, it's like strengthening a muscle. It's like the more that you practice finding purpose in some of that pain, the more I think you look for it proactively. And I love, and I know you do too, like that end of the year, like that retrospection, looking back, introspection, like what did we learn? What did we take from this year? What do we want to bring into next year? What do we want to, quite frankly, leave here? Because like, I mean, I'm not perfect, and I just know there's some shit I messed up on for sure, or like things I'm just like, those parts of you that like, I can think of like envy and jealousy that was very prevalent for me early on this year, especially in relationships and things like that. Now I can't really remember her that much anymore. And I'm super grateful. And I'm like, she can stay here in 2023. That envy, that jealousy, that's not going to come with me next year. It's not necessary. It was helpful because it helped me, identify some of those things. I also think of like, especially the shoulds and supposed tos.
Yes, yeah.
I think a lot about like, where I'm at in my life. I just turned 35. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. Up until, July of this year, I was kind of living everywhere, just like out of my suitcase, traveling wherever I wanted to, loving that life, living that life, owning that life. But there is a lot of chatter, right? And it usually comes from people who are triggered by the fact that you're living out your unapologetic life. And it reminds them that maybe they didn't do it, right? Like, I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to like call anybody out, but more so I had to tell myself that of like, okay, it might just be that I'm living my life unapologetically and they're not. And so that's triggering, right? And so silencing a lot of those shoulds and supposed tos, I think was a huge learning this year. This time last year, I fully quit fitness. Like I told myself, I don't want to be a fitness coach anymore. I'm not going to coach fitness anymore. I didn't really know if, I was making great money and like all the things, all my fitness career, I'd done it since 2012, right? So it was like 8 years. Wow. And I just was like, no, this doesn't resonate with me anymore. And so now looking back, I'm like so freaking grateful that I did that, that I stepped out, that I took the leap. So for me, those are some of the learnings about envy and jealousy, the shoulds and supposed tos, taking that leap, even when you're scared shitless. Like, I just think there's nothing quite like starting when you're not ready and going for it when you don't think you're qualified yet, because I think that really supercharges something inside of you that like nobody else can teach you, What about from your perspective? Like, what are some things that you learned this year or stuff where you're like, that's going to stay in 2023, or I want to bring more of that in 2024?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things, Lunden. But also I want to just do some snaps and really reiterate what you just said. Your lifestyle can really trigger some people. That is so like my soul just did a backflip. That this past year, I experienced that on a deeper level, and it's awareness. Because for a while I was like, I'm like, is something wrong with me? Or these relationships don't work? I'm like, what is happening? But this year I did realize, and it's just the truth. It's not condescending. It's not cocky. It's just the truth. It's like when you and I saw Brendan Burchard did a fabulous post actually yesterday, I believe, about the taxes, the stuff that comes with being successful and really being a fully lit, passionate person. You get, the people's opinions. Some people will not support it and they don't want to see you live that fabulous, successful, really like just maxed out life. And he did a great post about navigating the emotional growing pains that come with being successful, the stuff that comes with it. But what you just said is so true. Like this past year in 2023, I realized, by me following my dreams and living this maxed out life, in Austin, Texas, and I can pick up and move wherever. I run my own business, and, me getting in the best shape ever, and just overall mind, body, soul, spirit, just really like so fulfilled, so happy, reaching my dreams and being, outspoken about it. It will trigger some people, but there's a quote that I love. Your triggers are your responsibilities. So if someone else is bothered, so it triggers something by me living out my dreams and doing this, that's on them. Your trigger is your responsibility. This is not an excuse to go around being, like rude and mean, but no. You have to understand, let's say, for example, if someone who lives in my apartment building is triggered by me doing all this, that's because there is a part of them that is not following their dreams. That's what a trigger is. They see something in me and they're like, ooh, I'm jealous, insecure. I wish I was her, envy. But some people are not self-aware enough to understand that their trigger is their responsibility. And it's nothing to do with me. I'm just kind of a mirror of, oh, there is something unhealed in me, or I want to, whatever it is, but it's a real thing. Being successful, like in all areas, it comes with extra stuff. But yeah.
And don't you feel like, I feel like no matter what, there's just going to be the peanut gallery. Like there's going to be the chatter and
There
the
will
noise. Like we just
always.
cannot please everybody. Like we just can't.
Never,
And I
never.
just feel like, and it was so unconscious. Like I wasn't
Mhm.
consciously trying to please people, but I think I was unconsciously playing small because I didn't
Yeah.
want to be like too much. The other day we were on a meditation call for our NABA community. We all meditate together and we
Yeah.
all unmuted ourselves for like 30 seconds to say like what we wanted to let go of.
Yeah.
When I said it, I was like, oh, I want to let go of playing small. Like I feel like I've dimmed my light because for some unconscious, subconscious reasoning, I thought that I was like, being too much for others. And I'm just sick of that
Mm.
shit. Like I'm not playing small anymore. I'm turning my light up super bright. I'm not gonna,
Good.
it doesn't
As
matter
you should.
because like I'm gonna die. I have a note on my fridge that says, I'm gonna die. Nobody cares. It's time. It's like that reminds
Mm.
me of my mortality,
Yeah.
not in a, I mean, I guess maybe for some people it might seem morbid, but not really in a morbid way, more just like, girl, it's go time. You don't know if you get another round. Like, let's go,
Yeah.
chop, chop, and I just feel like
Literally.
that's really helped me get that good tunnel vision of just like, no,
Yes.
girl, like this is your light, turn it
Yeah.
up, crank it up.
Yeah.
But I think also this year too was a realization of that, like just certain habits, limiting beliefs, different things I was doing
Mm.
was really a reflection of that subconscious belief of like, I have to play small. I can't be too
Yeah.
big. I can't be too bright, or it might be uncomfortable for some people. But I'm like, if it's uncomfortable for them, then I don't need to be
Oh.
around them. Hey, really quick, I want to interrupt the podcast for just a minute to tell you about one of my favorite supplements for hair, skin, nails, digestive, and gut health. And that is Snap Supplements Super Greens with Collagen. Now, if you're following me on social media, you've probably seen me post about this a bunch because honestly, this product tastes amazing and it's jam-packed with nutrients, like I said, to support healthy hair, skin, and nails. It helps support detoxification, a healthy immune system, and there's even probiotics in there for a healthy gut. It's non-GMO, no sugar added, soy-free, grass-fed collagen, and every scoop is going to give you 7 grams of protein. And this is why I love it, because it's not like a protein shake. It's just a scoop of powder. It tastes amazing. I put it in water, or if I want more hydration, I'll put it in coconut water and mix it up. And it's like having a nice, refreshing beverage that's packed with a bunch of super greens and protein. So what I'm super excited about is that for listening to the podcast, you'll get this discount here, nowhere else, but for listening to the podcast. You can save 25% off on all your Snap supplement purchases, including the super greens with collagen. And you do that by using code Lunden25 at checkout. That's LUNDEN 25. LUNDEN 25 to get 25% off at checkout. You can shop on snapsupplements.com or you can shop on my website, lifelikelondon.com/supplements. And you'll see there's already an additional 10% taken off. But you, because you're a podcast listener, you're going to get 25% off when you use the code Lunden25 at checkout. LUNDEN 25 at checkout to get your Snap supplements, super greens, and collagen, and all your Snap supplements for 25% off. Now, let's get back to the show.
No, their triggers are their responsibility. And you should just, anytime you feel like, you're around people and you feel, I call it an old timeline, because let's be real. There will always be people, throughout our whole life, the more successful we get, it doesn't matter how we become a billionaire. There will always be people who are bothered by it. But I say this, I have all the affirmations in my iPhone all the time. Their triggers are their responsibility. And also, let's be real. The people that are also on that path of following their dreams and pushing it and really maxing out, they'll never have a opinion or a problem with you following your dreams. It's always people that are like either doing, and I'm not trying to sound condescending when this comes out, but are doing less than you or just not on that path. So, what you said is so powerful. And it's like, when you realize also that this is something that I love to tell myself. If I feel like uncomfortable in life and like, ooh, just, like I'm really being stretched and out of my comfort zone, it means you're doing something right. So congratulations. I think as a society, sometimes, we can tell ourselves, oh, like if I feel like I'm, not dying, but if I feel like I'm comfortable because I'm doing so many things and growing and doing things outside my comfort zone and really living in my light, it means you're doing something right. It means you are growing and you are growing at a fast rate. Whether that's living in a different city from your family, traveling to a foreign country, of course, the nerves, the fear, all that, but those are good nerves and good fears. So congratulations, keep on doing things outside of your comfort zone. And yeah, I think for me too, I've had so many friendships this past year dwindle away, which has been painful at times, but I also trust I would rather follow my dreams to the max and be surrounded by like-minded, high vibe people than anything else. So to me, I listen to my intuition. When a relationship starts feeling like you're putting on a pair of pants from when you're 5 years old, it just doesn't fit. I'm like, this has reached its expiration date. So yeah, I totally feel that. And I think as we go into 2024 and we're ending 2023, it's a great way, to reflect. What are you proud of? What do you want to bring into 2024? And I feel like for me, I definitely, this past year, I learned so much about myself. This chapter in Austin, Texas, a lot of unexpected life moments, but it taught me so many things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have one more thing I want to bring up because you brought up Brendan Burchard, and then it made me think of his book, High Performance Habits. Then it made me think of this book I recently read. I'm really moved by books. I love to read. And I remember Brendan Burchard wrote this book, High Performance Habits. And that's the book that I read right before I quit my job in Austria to pursue my own thing. And I remember being like at a photo shoot, getting my hair and makeup done and reading that book. And like every second I got, I was like glued to that book, and it like changed me. It profoundly changed me. And then recently I read this book. I joined a book club since moving to Utah. I've been wanting to meet new people. So I joined a book club. The first book we read was called Anatomy of the Spirit by Caroline Myss. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. It's so good. Okay. There's so many mic drop moments in that book. Speaking of mic drop moments, you're going to and the audiobook, the book I guess is a lot longer, but the audiobook is 2.5 hours. So I've listened to it like 4 times now. I'm obsessed.
That sounds really good.
Obsessed. I think I've told everybody that I love, they need to read it. So one of the things that she says that totally changed me, and I know is going to be the trajectory for 2024 for me. She says, the first marriage you have needs to be to yourself. The first marriage you have needs to be to yourself. And
so true.
When I look back at so many relationship patterns, which undoing the doing, right? I'm currently unlearning, undoing a lot of the sameness of the ways I've showed up in relationships. I kind of just got sick of my own shit. I was like, ugh, I don't want to be that person anymore. I got to, time for me, and I got to do my own thing. And, so that part, though, your first marriage has to be to yourself, was so profound, because I think sometimes we can look for somebody to make us feel a certain type of way or to fulfill a particular need. And that's something that I'm for sure leaving in 2023. And I wake up in the morning now, when you just read something and you're just never the same again. I wake up in the morning and there's the union, the couple that lives inside me talks to each other of good morning, sweetheart. I love you. You're so beautiful. There's this dialogue of this marriage and this union between myself, right? I live alone. I am alone. I just, I'm a self-talker. So I'm talking to myself out loud sometimes when I'm wake up, but I'm that was so profound too, because I'm oh, as I'm continuing to learn, like you said, your triggers are your responsibility. So as I'm triggered, I'm I don't need somebody to come and calm the trigger. I need to go in and have this union with myself. That's where did that come from? Why? What might have happened? Go through that social studies history book of myself and look back and I don't know how that sits with you or what that says to you, but I'm that's kind of what I want to do is I just want to marry myself and fall back in love with myself and dig deep into who I am and, get rid of, like, prune like the rose bush, if you will,
Yes.
of like, what's dead, what needs to be cut, what do we need to foster even more of, what are we missing, what nutrients do we need in order to bloom. And that's just like my theme is like, I'm going to propose to me from me. I have my Aura ring, so maybe that's
so
my wedding ring to
cute.
myself. But I'm like, that's what really I don't want to wait till 2024 to feel that. And I read that book a couple months ago, so it's been kind of resonating with me. But that's really my theme from now and into next year is just like, how can I love and nurture and marry myself even more?
I love that. That is so powerful, Lunden. And I feel like it's just so true. Self-love is such a lifelong journey. It's not an overnight fix. It's the journey. It's the vow we make to ourselves. And there is a fabulous TEDx talk that this woman gives, and it's famous, actually. It has like millions of views. It's so powerful. It's this cute 40-year-old lady. It was a few years ago. And the whole TEDx talk is, there's a mirror on the stage, and she's talking about how her whole life, she's like, when am I going to meet my soulmate? From the day you're born, you're like, oh my God, this man I'm going to marry, he's going to be this and that and that and that. And basically, she reached a point where she was like 32, and she's like, I still haven't found this person. And one day she looked in the mirror and she realized, just had the biggest epiphany. She was like, this man, that I have been dreaming about and praying for, and all the qualities, she was like, that's me though. And she just looked in the mirror and was never the same. And so she made the vow to herself, which is like a marriage vow: through sickness, through health, till death do us part. Like, for myself, I will be there for you. I'll show up for you. I won't abandon you. And I thought that was so powerful, because I do think sometimes we can spend our lives or parts of our life seeking that like external person to fill us, complete us, validate us, secure us, whatever that word is. But we do have to realize in life, we got to go on our own journey that will be for our entire life, of like the never ending exploration, understanding all of our layers and attachments and our love languages and how we operate. And that's why for me, like, I'm single right now. I love being single because I never get to stop exploring and understanding who I am as a woman. And I do think getting older is the most beautiful thing ever, because with it comes radical acceptance. I've never loved my body more. I just am so secure with myself as a female. And I'm so secure with just everything that makes me me. I just think it's such a powerful journey when you can become confident in who you are. Like, yes, I fully, I'll never say I fully love myself, because I think that is a lie, to be honest. But right now it's like, I feel pretty damn good, and I'm comfortable saying that. And I just think the seasons of life are beautiful. One day, of course, partners will come and go, and I'm sure I'll find a partner, but I'm so enjoying the exploration and just me and understanding myself.
You're so magnificent, Megan. I'm so grateful for our time and conversation here today. We'll just kind of land the plane here and just know that Megan's going to be back. I already told her before we started.
Yes,
I'm like, you want to come back? I'm like, you want to come back like every other month and be on the podcast, yes, be on the radio show. Thank you guys for listening to Self Love and Sweat, the podcast and radio, available everywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as on the Expansion channel on Dash Radio. Again, Megan, I appreciate your heart and soul. I can't wait to hug you in real life. And, and Megan is Megan W. Gallagher on Instagram. So give her a follow. I'll put it in the show notes and everything too, but give her a follow and check out all that she has put out there. I appreciate you, sister. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, Lunden. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.